Hello and welcome back to the back nine of the Cass County Coterie number two, taking place at Eugene T. Mahoney State Park in Ashland, Nebraska. My name's Lupe Demas, joined alongside Blaine Wood here. As you can see, he's in the lead of both the pro division, but also of our feature card here. Blaine, how's it going?
It's going well. Good to be back for this back nine. See some good golf with some longer holes compared to the front.
Exactly. Let's get this started because I think like you said, there's some longer holes, and and we're gonna see a lot more distance drivers and a lot more decisions having to be made on the green. Here on hole 10, it's a pretty straightforward shot, but the wind kind of made it a lot less straightforward. It was kind of a right to left headwind that was kind of forcing. Yeah, as you can see there, Brandon kind of forces his disc over.
And if you can recall from the front nine, if you haven't watched that, go check that out. But I lost my jokery on hole two. Was really planning to throw it on this hole, kind of get a hyzer flip, and had to throw that zone and just kind of pulled it into the tree.
Yeah, and that goes to show that when you have a comfortable disc, for newer players, when you have a comfortable disc, it really goes to show that you sometimes just need to lean on the one disc that you know really well, because even a slight change between a jokery and a zone, even though they're not that different of a disc, it forces you to change the angle of release a little bit, and that right there, as you can see on your tee shot, affected the result.
And you can see with some of these putts, the wind kind of picked up when we were on top of this hill, and mine as well kind of just floats away. But the last three putts kind of just got caught up in that wind.
Yeah, the nice thing about Mahoney Park is that, like I said on the front nine, the front nine is kind of the attackable holes in terms of distance wise. They're typically shorter, especially in these short positions, as we see. Dalton is pretty unhappy with himself there, but the back nine is it's a longer. They're all longer distances, but also since it's more exposed, the wind is going to be a big factor.
And you can definitely see James really taking his time here. The wind kind of in gusts throughout the day, some 10-minute, 5-minute gusts where it was pretty strong, and then sometimes it kind of died out.
Yeah, exactly. And he's putting with some daggers, and those are pretty overstable putters, but still we end up with some blemishes on the card. But we head to hole 11 here, and Blaine Anderson puts a pretty good move on this disc here, and the card says 401, but with the wind and honestly the elevation, I think it plays a little bit further than that.
So I did pull out my rangefinder, and on the angle, it's comparable to throwing 465.
Yeah.
So it's slightly uphill, and in that headwind, probably playing a little further. I actually got mine a little too flat and kind of pumped it past the basket.
Yeah, exactly. And we see here James actually puts a really good move on this disc, and I think he kind of used the headwind also to his advantage there. He kind of got the nose up just enough to where it was going to get under it and lift it a little bit, but also not stall it out early in its flight. As we see, both Brandon and Dalton ended up hitting this tree on the left side.
And and that's definitely the one mistake you can't make on this hole. There's no error outright, especially with no OB today. You just can't hit that tree. It's
Yeah.
just adding strokes. Me and Blaine Anderson, we got an easy par. There's nothing really in the way just because we missed the one tree off the tee.
Yeah, and this is one of the things, I took some lessons with my commentator here, Blaine, earlier in the summer, and one of the things that he hammers to all of his students is always minimize the mistakes and make the least dangerous play possible. And as you can see there, Dalton really floating that in there.
Yeah. And and the way I try to put it now is like know your good mistakes and your bad mistakes and avoid those bad mistakes. A good mistake you can recover from, save a stroke. Bad mistakes is when you start taking those bogeys, double bogeys, and if there's OB, especially on a course like this, even triple bogeys.
Absolutely, as you can see there, Dalton taking the unfortunate bogey as well as Brandon, and it just goes to show Hitting a tree early is gonna make it difficult. Now this hole 12 here was playing significantly farther than the 319 that it's listed as. It was taking quite a pump to get up there, as you can see. Both James and Blaine Anderson through their shots, and they both ended up kind of coming out early. You had a more direct line, um, maybe a little bit too overstable a disc, or did you hit the line that you were looking for?
I actually wanted to put it a little wider, just so that kind of head right to left will push it back. Seeing James and Blaine Anderson go kind of straight and they just getting shoved left, I was like really wanting to put it way outside that tree, but catching those limbs is never bad, especially with this hole placement.
Absolutely. And you see Brandon kind of put his pretty high up in the air that was just going to stall out. And unfortunately, here for James, he just catches. And I think as soon as he released that disc, he knew I should have thrown the zone.
Yeah, and trying to do that soft half run nose up forehand into a headwind, almost never a good idea when there's a tree in front of you. It's almost
Absolutely.
always going to lift into those limbs.
Here, I thought Dalton made this putt. It looked really good out of his hand. From my angle where I was standing, it looked good. And yours also looked like it was going to be good. Maybe it was high out of the hand, but the wind kind of caught it and picked it up just a little bit more to catch it off the top nub.
Yeah, and the video recording didn't show the amount of time I took. There was a limb right in my face that wasn't in the way of the putt. So I should have putted normal, but I straddled out and just kind of lifted it.
And
Actually,
I think it's possible that you might have taken less time because of that on the following putt, and that's why you may have missed it as well.
and that's definitely accurate. I kind of rushed the second one, told myself not to think about it, ended up missing.
The hole 13 is also kind of a move, but with the tailwind that we were kind of getting on this hole, it was easier to get it up in the air and kind of let the wind ride it. As you can see Dalton doing here, he put a move on this disc. He really did.
Yeah, this is one of his furthest flying disc. It's one of his kind of beat up destroyers. Now this hole is slightly uphill, and with that toe, and it's good to just put a pump on one. So it's probably playing around 420
Mhm.
more than the 385.
And James just caught the last limb of that bushy tree there. He was telling me afterwards that if his disc didn't catch that tree, it probably would have been in the same spot as Dalton's was. You took an undertaker and threw it about 500 feet.
Yeah, so even on the recording here, I saw it hit the top of the hill, and I thought like it would totally be fine. That tailwind kind of stopped it from flipping too much, and I thought it just would have hit the top and sat. You'll see later on, I actually hit the road and slid probably 100 feet.
Yeah, it was an impressive shot to say the least. You can see a couple pitch ups there. Tough for Brandon to end up in that tree. I think he's starting to get to the point in his round where whatever the injury was that he had to have surgery on might have started to tax on him a little bit. But a great birdie for Dalton and a good par for you given the distance that you were away
Yeah.
from the basket.
Just a little stats. Dalton was the only one in the field, or even in the tournament that day to birdie this hole. So
Yeah.
just to show how hard this hole was actually playing.
And I think the card was playing. This card was playing during probably the windiest time of day as well. It was one of the later cards to go out, probably third or fourth to last card to go out. So it was definitely windy, and you can see there in this hole on hole 14, Dalton's disc just kind of lifted up over the trees. Blaine's getting just caught up in the wind and pushing left. And to be honest with you, it was really hard to track the discs
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I could imagine trying to follow these with this amount of headwind and this much movement in the disc.
Now I'm curious for you, Blaine. What was your why did you decide to go with the high route? Because I played in not exactly the same wind conditions, but I played in this pin position uh, the week before, and I threw a mid range to maybe circle two up the middle. So I was curious why everybody kind of decided to go with the high outside route.
So, from my perspective, on a non-windy day, I'm throwing that straight mid up the gut. An issue that I have in the headwinds is I flip discs over very easily. So flipping a mid into those tall trees to the right just speaks bogey. And so I know with the headwind with an extremely overstable disc, it's just going to lift and go left. I saw Blaine Anderson leave it too tight and get caught way left, so I tried to put it further right. Didn't trust myself, still left it tight and just kind of drifted 50 feet left of the basket.
Yeah. You can see there, Dalton ended up in a good spot. Um, this was a great birdie for James. They both ended up in really good spots. Like I said, I think James with the inside line has a better possibility of getting the look for birdie, but also to your point, the higher probability of turning it over and ending up in the trees and probably taking a bogey because at that point, those trees are thick enough to where you're just pitching out and hoping for the best from there.
Exactly, and especially with those two trees right by the basket, those limbs are low. You could see they were below my shoulder line trying to putt from 8 feet away.
Yeah, as we see here, hole 15, it's a blind shot for the most part. You can't really see the basket from the tee pad, so that's why I was kind of set up at the corner. And James and I think the rest of the card was pretty much blaming me for their poor tee shots after James's first shot because and Blaine Anderson specifically said, I thought James's was a good shot, and for the most part, everybody else ended up in pretty much the exact same spot. I think.
Yeah, yeah. From the card's perspective, seeing James' shot and how it flew and where it landed, we all thought he was parked. So we were anticipating if we threw the same line or the same distance, we would also be parked. Turns out we were all slightly outside the circle short.
Yep, that's exactly right. And as you can see, these trees come into play. This like shrubbery comes into play here. You can't really see that putt super well, but um, Dalton's his got slammed down by the wind. I think he just got the nose down just enough to where when it crested the hill, it just slammed itself right down.
And in Dalton's position, he played it smart here. He was the only one that really couldn't feel safe running it, so he just popped it right by the pole.
Yeah, and this late into the round, he's thinking to himself, okay, I've got a 3 under so far, and the next 3 holes are pretty gettable, so there's no reason to take the unnecessary risk of rolling back into the trees, not giving yourself a putt, and everybody else taps out for the par. Hole 16 here, pretty simple. I think everybody threw just a mid or an overstable putter approach disc up the middle, and it's pretty basic. There's not really a ton of danger. You just have to throw it straight. Blaine he left his inside.
Mm-hmm. And with this hill, as soon as the disc catches hyzer, if you're inside, you're just falling down that hill. So you can see my throw, I kind of put a little flex on it, let it just kind of push straight before it hyzers. And this was another hole where our eyes were playing tricks on all of us. We thought James left his like 15 short. He ended up leaving it like 40 short.
Yeah.
So when we thought we were parked, me and Brandon were actually 25 to 30 out.
Yeah, and this was an amazing putt for Brandon. He's kind of had some struggles here and there so far in this round, and to come back and make that putt for you both to make that putt was really really good.
Yeah, and I haven't had a birdie since three putting on a hole, so that definitely felt good and a little confidence booster.
Absolutely, great putt there for birdie for Dalton, and then Blaine captures the par there. So we head to 17. This one's in the left position, and the only tree that you really have to miss is the one that James just skirted past.
Yeah, so it looks like an insanely covered fairway of trees. If you miss this first tree, discs just tend to miss all the other ones as well. They line up in a certain way where they don't really like to hit those late trees.
And you can go inside or outside, as you can see. You went with the more outside route, pretty direct at the basket. To be honest with you, that was a really good shot, and Brandon here just kind of turns his forehand over and ends up in a pretty tough spot.
Yeah, him only throwing forehands today definitely was not an advantage. This is a kind of backhand heavy course in these positions. And so he's trying to throw hyzer turnovers, flat turnovers, and with this much wind, not a combination for success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Blaine Anderson looking to capitalize on the birdie and just leaves it short right. This was a really good bid for James as well. It just kind of floated with the wind and stalled it out, but and that was your putt that you said that you wanted to look at a million times, and it definitely dropped out of your
It
hand. It just dropped right down.
As soon as that putt left my hand, I thought I hearted it dead middle, walking away with a birdie on a tough hole, and it just fell and smacked the basket. And I was not upset with my putt, but upset with the result.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got some pars and a bogey, I believe. Not a terrible result, seeing as some of the tee shots were in tough positions, but you'd hope for a birdie at least there on that hole. And now we head to the final hole, hole 18. This is pretty uphill. I mean, it's probably playing closer to 260, 250 ish with the uphill, I would guess. And into the headwind too was definitely not ideal.
Yeah, definitely playing around that 260-foot area, and this bush is a lot wider than it looks on this camera, and you cannot see the basket at all from the tee.
Yeah.
So you're just trusting your hyzer into this wind and hopefully putting it close.
And luckily you did, and so far everybody else has put themselves in a tough position to make any sort of putt. You can see Brandon just ends up short. He's given himself a look, and Blaine just kind of pushes that one to the right. And that's the other tough part about this hole, is that this is really one of the few greens where the basket's a little bit elevated on a hillside kind of, so there's a really good potential for rollaways there. Luckily, both James and Dalton don't go too far, but unfortunately, Blaine can't clean up for the par.
And this is also one of the few baskets that's in the wide open. So all the wind that's coming around, you're facing on top of this hill, which is one of the highest points of the park as well.
So the lone birdie on hole 18, and looks like we're ending up here with the champion. You ended up at 7 under par, 1,000 rated round, which was awesome, and a really, really good start to your season.
Yeah, it definitely felt good to get out, and especially with the wind, like you said, 1,000 rated round felt good. Last year I started off really slow, definitely didn't take it well on the mental side of the game, but starting off strong and hot, and even on a somewhat inconsistent round, to put down a 7 down round felt good.
Yeah, there was definitely quite a few birdies left out for the entire card, to be honest with you. But you can attribute that to the wind. First tournament, any given day, I think any of these guys can come out and shoot a really hot round out here, and it was awesome to be able to film this card and to be able to watch some really good golf. So I just want to thank you for taking part of this commentary and allowing me to help you out.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, and huge shout out to Lupe here for filming this and editing it, putting it together for us, and I expect to see more from him this year, and from Disc Gauntlet, Zen Llama Media is getting up and going. So I'm excited for some Nebraska disc golf this year.
Absolutely. For Blaine Wood, my name's Lupe Nemus, signing off from the Cass County Coterie. Have a great day.